Hello and welcome to the Racers HQ podcast. I'm your host, Matt Murphy, and joining me on the line tonight is our dedicated co-host, Pat Mulry. Pat, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing great. Excited to be back on the pod, to be podcasting once again.
Back on the pod. No apologies, no pod fade. This is pod truth.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, great. Yeah, great to have you. You sipping on anything tonight, or are we back to the iced tea?
No. I decided this evening I would celebrate the grand return of the Racers HQ podcast to the internet airwaves with some bourbon whiskey. So this is let's see, what is it? This is Larceny Barrel Proof.
Oh, that sounds nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's tasty.
Very good. Well, I'm going.
How about yourself?
I'm going LaCroix right now. Yeah, thanks for asking. But I went and had a little tequila soda at Rad Bar in Midtown, the Plaza District. Great little district here in Oklahoma City. And now I'm gonna stay cool for the rest of the night because I'm a good boy. But yeah. Well, awesome, Pat. So happy to be back on the pod. Let's get right into Garage Talk. It's been like 5 weeks since we've done this, so I know we've all been in our garage a few times. I feel like you're always more productive than I am. So why don't you hit us with some high-level garage talk? And for the new listeners, there's so many new listeners.
Right.
For the new listeners, Pat Mulry is primarily working on a mid-90s of some sort E36 BMW 3 Series that we call Miku, and he will continue to refer to Miku. And so there's no additional tabula rosa to provide you with that information. So I hope you were listening. But carry on, Pat.
Thank you for the backgrounder. I feel like we need some bumper music for Garage Talk.
Yeah,
like da 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 da.
Yeah,
something like that.
I've always thought a good sampling. Like I've got this little like mobile recording device. A good sampling of like some wheel guns. Maybe some burnouts.
Yeah.
Maybe some braps.
Pit crew sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, pit crew sounds. So
yeah. That'd be good.
Get right on that. I'll call our producer and see if he can work something up.
Come on, producer.
Yeah.
What are we paying you for? Can't even get a garage sound bumper. So let's see. 5 weeks. It's hard for me to remember what we.
So I think you kind of got the motor back in the car. I think you were. Okay. Really, I think we're kind of getting ready for Houston, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah.
Yep. So if I had gotten the engine back in the car, then probably the next thing was to get all the undercar stuff done. I prefer to do that first because that can be where the surprises really add up. One of the things that always I think you run into at this stage in a reassembly is if you run into parts surprises that you are missing, that you didn't know that you were missing, or things that were broken that you didn't realize were broken that need to be replaced. And then, since I'm only doing this really on the weekends, then it's like, you gotta get that taken care of, ordered. Hopefully it gets, shipped in a timely fashion so that it doesn't slow you down too much. But fortunately there's been some of that, but not too bad, and nothing we haven't been able to really work around too much. But I revised the exhaust. I don't know if I told you about this. I revised the exhaust so that it's actually coming out the back of the car now rather than the passenger side of the car.
Oh, okay.
One of the things we had Chris Blizzard on a few weeks ago. One of the things that he mentioned was the importance of, driver comfort and just, and I think generally the car's, I think it's in good shape with that, but the kind of one of the things that, like the ergonomic stuff is all pretty taken care of. The seat's good enough. Nobody really complains about it as long as we got the cool suit working. I think we're generally in pretty good shape on most of that stuff. But the one complaint we've had kind of consistently for the last few years is that it's a little bit of a loud environment. And so I figured I'm just going to reroute this exhaust back to the back of the car, make it a little bit of a better sonic environment for the driver. Okay. I don't think it'll have any. It's not intended to have any performance impact. I hope it doesn't have any negative performance impact. I don't know really why it should. But hopefully it'll, make it a little bit less loud. And so that's one thing.
It's a big undertaking. So two quick questions there. One, in the past, I believe we've had issues with the rear routing causing some problems with the fuel cell. So were you able to solve that?
I think so. So I gave that a lot of thought too, because well, thinking back to Sebring more than a decade ago, was kind of the first time we had a potential fuel heating issue with it, and so just using the factory location for the muffler is pretty far on the driver's rear corner, so it's not right. I didn't have to reroute anything using stock parts to get it away from the fuel cell. It wasn't so close that I was like, oh man, we're gonna rub or something like that. Um, but then I did make two additions, and one was I ordered a designed, and thanks again for the Send Cut Send recommendation from Send Cut Send, a piece of I don't know 080 or 090 stainless plate. So stainless has a very low, very poor transmittability of heat. Among like titanium's worse, but titanium, super expensive.
Sure.
So ordered a piece that basically is an air gapped block off plate between a vertical plate that basically runs from the bottom of the fuel cell all the way up to, just almost to the very top, at the intersection of where the bottom side of the floor of the trunk is.
Gotcha.
So it's air gapped, and then I put some of that like header shield stuff on it or exhaust shield stuff on it too, which is a very belt and suspenders approach. But
it works.
Yeah, and I think I put some of that on the side of the fuel cell too. So it's pretty isolated. The air gap is of all of that, the air gap is the most important part.
Yeah.
Because
is stainless better than aluminum?
Oh yeah, aluminum transmits heat immediately.
Yeah. The more you know.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons aluminum's so difficult to weld, is because you go from like, hey, look, this is going great, to, oh shit, pardon my French, where's all the aluminum melting off to, because you're running it too hot. Whereas like with steel or stainless, you can just keep running the same heat. You have to speed up a little bit just in laying down the weld, but the material's not going to disappear unless you really have it too high. And wrapped the muffler too with some of that same stuff. So I think it's pretty isolated. And then I did the first bit of woodworking for the car that I've done in decades, and built a little standoff. There's a bracket on the inside of the muffler, out of some oak, a scrap of oak that I had sitting around from a woodworking project about 15 years ago, so that if the muffler were to jostle around and come in contact with the fuel cell, it couldn't contact the fuel cell, but the cage surrounding the fuel cell, it'd be the wood that gets in contact first. And of course, wood is a terrible conductor of heat until it conducts all the heat because it caught fire. But we're not dealing with temperatures in that range from a muffler. So yeah, got that all installed. Got the transmission refilled. I'll have to top it off once we get once I get the pump back on and the cooler for that. But everything got done underneath the car, I think. And then that took a couple of weekends of doing stuff under the car, because it always does. And at the same time, I was waiting for, so one of the things we've talked about a lot is over the years, and especially I think the last couple of years, in talking about trying to really work on making the car more reliable, is just trying to think ahead on what will make it will avoid potential problems down the road.
Yeah.
So, well, you probably certainly recall, because you installed the original one, that the coolant fill tank has this weird rubber hose that goes from the bottom of that so it's an aftermarket hose that goes from there to the factory rubber hose that goes underneath the intake manifold, that has 5 branch off connections on it, right? All of which on our car were capped off. I mean, just like, throw a bolt in it, put a rubber, a hose clamp around that, and they're just inert basically. And that piece of rubber hose was, I think it was, probably original to the car, right? So it's like, going on 30 years old. And I'm like, this, like, it wasn't crumbling, but it's one of those like carbon black hoses that like you touch it now and your hand is just covered in that carbon black stuff. And you're like, it's clearly rotting out, even though it still works. But like, if that hose goes during a race, you're really screwed, right? Because you're just gonna start pumping water out of the engine onto the side of the engine and out, right? And so it's like, we don't use any of the functionality of the other hoses. It's not going to the throttle body. It's not going to the car heater. It's not going to something else that originally did on a factory use. So I was like, I'm just going to get rid of this hose. I'm not going to buy the replacement because it doesn't make any sense because we're not using those functions. And I'm just going to replace it with just a stainless tube. Because that's not going to, that's less likely to fail than any of this. So put that on, actually put the first one of those on before the engine went back in the car. But then I didn't like the way the rubber hose would, because then the rubber hose comes out of that and routes around the back of the engine along the firewall on the passenger side of the firewall to where that coolant can is on the inside passenger fender. I didn't like the way it was making that 90-degree turn because it would kink. I was like, that's not good. Like when we're trying to fill it, that's going to be a total pain. So then I ordered and I had some 3/4 inch stainless tube sitting around from another project that I was going to use. And I was like, well, we'll just make this into that 90-degree turn. So then I ordered a die for the tube bender to do that, which, the company that sells the dies was like, oh yeah, we have that in stock. No problem. We'll ship it right out. And then like, 10 days later, I email them like, hey, by the way, that thing that I ordered that I need. Oh yeah, we didn't actually have any of those in stock, but they're, when we do production runs on those, we do a bunch of them at the same time, and that's fixing to go into production here in the next couple of weeks. And I'm like, okay, just cancel my order. And I was able to order a pre-bent piece from Burns Stainless. Pardon me, and then just put some 37-degree flares on it, and was able to use tube nuts on it. So it's got tube nuts on either end with that 90-degree bend, and so now I'm not concerned about that at all. It's just got one little short. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 12 or maybe 18 inches long. Nobody can tell the difference in 6 inches. Let's just be clear about that.
We're not good at this.
When it comes to hose and tube, 6 inches, 18 inches, it's all the same.
It's all the same.
All the same. And like from the coolant tank to where it attaches to that, and then there's another little connector hose that goes from the other end of the stainless tube into the back of the water pump. So hopefully that
sounds more resilient.
Yeah, it's just, there's nothing to corrode, there's nothing to break down, and the hose is all brand new. So we should get, for the lifetime of this engine, we should be set on that at least. And so then so let's see, last weekend I was finishing getting that part installed, and it's such a pain working under that intake manifold because it's just like you can't see. There's about as much room under there as my forearm, so
each component should be color, like painted a different, like fluorescent color, right? Because you can't tell which component you're working on because there's all these little components in there.
Yeah, and we've even got them all labeled, right? So like, we've got the intake, what is it? Intake idle air control valve, like those, that has the 2 labels on it. Like they're all labeled, but you're still trying to, read something in a dark space, and I was like, man, what we really should do is the next time we have this whole thing out is we should take that entire engine harness, put it on one, circular connector, everything that comes into it on a circular connector and it's just one electrical connection, because it's so easy to put all that stuff on, like attach all the sensors and everything to the block and to the head. When you've got the engine out of the car, it's attaching them to the car that's the difficult part. But anyway, that's a problem for future us.
Also, like with a custom ECU, I think we could probably get away from that idle air control.
If we ever go to an aftermarket ECU, there's all sorts of things that make.
Like I feel like we could really clean up that intake manifold, even without putting like an aftermarket one on there. Just get in there and delete a bunch of stuff and plug a bunch of holes and simplify it.
Yeah, and it's funny because like that idle air control valve, it's such a clunker, and you're like, you completely eliminate this when you go to a drive-by-wire throttle, right? Like the computer just opens the throttle enough to let it idle, but like that wasn't the state of the art in 1990. Well, 1990, 1992,
Probably, when it was designed,
when this system all got designed,
Yeah.
So I think I got most of that put back in. Oh, I installed the new in the course of all this, installed the new fire system,
nice.
bottle system. Yeah. So that actually, one nice part about that is the in the old, where we had the fire bottle's in the same place as it was previously. But on the old fire bottle, the remove pin was back behind the driver, so that if you were strapped in, but we had forgotten to pull the pin on the fire system, the driver really couldn't do it themselves without completely undoing it. And
I'm with you.
But like when you go onto the track in Lemons, like when they check your harnesses, they need to see that pin's been pulled, and if it hasn't, they're not going to do it for you. It's like you've either got to get out and do it yourself, or get somebody from your team down here to do it. And of course, if we're in the middle of the race, that's like a beat your head against the wall kind of moment, right?
That's a good point.
So now because the new system is one, it's one that has both we still have the same fire pull in the location where it used to be, but it also has it also has an automatic release. Like if the car's on fire, and that bulb gets 170 degrees or whatever it is, 150 degrees, probably closer to 170, then it'll break and the system will fire off automatically. So that control is kind of it's on the center tunnel, kind of right where your right hand would fall naturally. It's got, and those are together, like where the fire pin goes in is in the same thing with that bulb. So if we forget to do it in the pit, the driver can just reach over and do it himself real easily. So that's a problem that we'll avoid for the future. That system, I don't know if I mentioned that on the last pod, that we had to replace it because the specification for SFI systems changed. So that it's not for the reason that I thought originally, which was that it's not the firefighting agent that has changed. This is still an AFFF system. It was the tube size had to be increased. So I think our old system was like, I don't know, 3/16 or maybe a 1/4 inch tube. It was 3/16 is probably closer to accurate, because it was really thin, really narrow. And the new stuff is 5/16, which is pretty sizable. So got that all lined in. And
when did that change? Asked the guy that recently installed a fire system.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Carry on.
I don't know. I just know when I started looking around, I emailed who is it that I got that from? FireSense. It's anyway, it's a FireSense system. Spa Technique is the company that sells it. And so I emailed them and I was like, hey, I've got this system, but the bottle's 10 years old. I've been told in the past that once a bottle hits 10 years, you have to replace it, whether or not it's still functional. And the response I got back was, no, that's not the problem. Actually, it's that the tube side, like we could refill it and you could keep using it, but we can't refill it and put an SFI tag on it because the tube size is wrong now.
Oh, there you go.
So I
Awesome.
don't know. You would think they'd be able to just adapt the nozzle on it.
Yeah,
So
that'd be too reasonable.
yeah.
Hmm.
So we got that in, got the engine in, got most of it wired up. I think it's all wired up to. I haven't put the nose of the car back on. So,
Mhm.
pardon me, radiator and oil cooler and that sort of stuff, and whatever on the front, fan. Electrics need to get hooked up, and then so hopefully that'll happen this coming weekend,
Nice.
and
Are you
maybe
gonna have
even test fire it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you gonna have a chance to take it to ECR before the November race?
I hope so. I was looking at the ECR calendar earlier today, and one disappointing thing is, and I'm only surprised that it's taken this long for it to happen. But when ECR restarted,
Mhm.
they were very, we're going to be super, super, super member friendly. There's going to be lots of member days on weekends. Every month we'll have, at least 2 weekend days, if not 2 full weekends that are members only. Um, blah blah blah. And
Mhm.
now, and that was true for a long time. And then, it slowly got walked back, where it was at least, one weekend a month would be members only. We're renting it out to, H, you know,
Yeah.
HPDEs and SCCA and NASA and whatever the other stuff and vintage racing and whatever else. Well, now they're to the point where it's pretty much every weekend they're renting it out, and the member days are like, Monday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Which, for those of us that are not, independently wealthy, or, our wealth is produced by royalties on, oil derricks or something like that, but people who actually have to, spend their time making their income.
Mhm.
Weekday track days are far less convenient, but so this may be the last testing day for us, with me as a member out there, because the value just starts going away real fast when I have to
Hmm.
plan taking off of work for a day or two to go test the car, because there's not a weekend day to do it. But looking at, like, as I look at September, every weekend day on September, um, well, I say that's not entirely true. The 28th and 29th is a Porsche Club of America's Ladies' Day weekend, and also a Members' Day. Um, Although I can't do it that weekend because I'm starting arbitration on the 30th.
Hmm.
Um, and then let's look at, but then October, it's sort of the same thing. It's like, the first 2 weekends are all, Driver's Edge, HPDE, PCA race weekend, and then the 19th and 20th. 19th is a something, Texas Outlaw something, and a Members Day on the 19th and 20th. The 17th and 18th are, but like the 10th is. So what I might try and do, depending on how the weather goes and my schedule and everything else, I might try and get out there like on Friday the 4th, because I'd really prefer to get out there sooner rather than later, so that if we find something not working on the car when it's on the
Yeah.
track, that then I've got, a couple weeks to get it together, and maybe even get it back out to retest before, the race weekend. So I think we counted 7 weekends between when we're
Yeah.
recording this and the race. So that's certainly a lot of time, but
That's getting
it's
close
all
though to get tests in and then get repairs done if need be. So
right. And I mean, it's gotten less productive around here without Ben here, because it's pretty much me doing it
yeah.
all, which I'm not complaining about, but that just means, we get 10 or 12 or 14 man hours in a weekend, and not 20 or 22 or 24. So
Yeah.
but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good stuff, man. Well, yeah, it
Mm.
sounds like it's coming along. What you got?
One more thing, what that on the artwork, which is interesting, um the white vinyls, um I don't know if they weren't UV proof or they just were thin or whatever. But they'd gone from being over the summer, they went from being, white like they were at
Mhm.
Hallett to being pink. Like,
Pink, huh?
yeah, the
Hmm.
paintwork was, the red paint underneath it was showing through. So Rachel actually has done some strong work with paint brushes
Hmm.
and has repainted most of it. The spirals on the side on both sides and the meatball on top have all been painted white where they were vinyl.
Okay.
And I think this weekend she's going to do the face, Miku's face.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I
Man,
was I
that's
was
a
surprised.
shame.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good because like we couldn't have freehanded it and had it look right. I mean,
Hmm.
from the start, we
Yeah.
tried doing that and it didn't work. So by having the white vinyls on there, then she just outlined it with like a thin Sharpie and then
Hmm.
peeled the vinyl off, and and so then she basically had the template to paint back to. So
Nice.
um, yeah,
Hmm.
so Rachel gets to paint a race car again for the first time in how many years?
Well, she was great
Many.
at it last time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So she's been helping
Yeah.
out there too. So yeah, so I think that's probably it for the Miku update. Uh, not
Okay.
not much has
Well,
changed other than just getting everything back on the car. How about for Miata Garage, Oklahoma City?
yeah. Let's see. K Miata progress. So, the main thing here is I'm getting into a big while you're in there problem, and
Mm,
unfortunately, is some should have been in there when I was probably building out the K swap in the first place. But I think we talked on the previous show. I'd heard a rattle. I had detected that this VTC actuator gear, which is basically on the intake cam, was failing, which is like a 100,000 mile issue. It's like 80,000 on the engine, and then I flogged it quite a bit.
yeah.
So yeah, so the fix is like, clearly there's going to be a cool YouTube fix where you don't have to pull all the cams out or remove the front cover of the motor. So I tried that, and step, let's say, B6 was, get it to top dead center, then back it out a little bit and see if the chain tensioner will release. And so what happens is this chain tensioner releases, and you put a little pin in it, and it locks it in place, and then you're able to
Right.
go about replacing the cam, right? So, all right, seems simple enough. So I go to do that, and yeah, it's not releasing, right? And so then I'm also kind of fiddling around with top dead center and realizing that like the cranks just clocked a little bit, like maybe 1 or 2 degrees to the right of the alignment, right, compared to the cams and everything. So like things aren't
Uh,
aligning. That's starting to read as like stretched chain, right? And then
yeah.
you go to Google some of these parts, right, to say, okay, well, I'm gonna need to get a few parts, right? New chain tensioner, new chain, and immediately it just starts coming up with these kits that are like, okay, you got to do the tensioner guides and all these things, right? And so
Right.
yeah, long story short, I ordered a whole bunch of like OEM Honda, front of the engine bits, right? So
Yeah.
all the tensioners and guides and chain, brand new chain. And yeah, so I've gotten that done. I pulled the front of the motor off the cover and got everything done. The K Miata's got, or the K motor's got a nice, like a really slick, alignment system for your chain and all the cams and everything, right? I mean, I know we've struggled with that a little bit on the E36, but it's probably also when you're trying to do, make shortcuts and not have to pull the whole front of the motor
Right.
off, right?
Right.
But yeah, like it all lined up real easily. And there was some stretching of the chain. I checked them, next to each other. So yeah, a whole bunch of brand new OEM Honda parts in there, and it should be good for another, 50,000 miles beating it up, maybe 40, which is probably longer than the car is going to last. So that'll work. Um,
So did you get it all put back together and all ready to go?
no, I got it all taken apart, and I got the chain done, and then, had to go do something else. But
Right.
I will say this was annoying. So all the factory service manuals I'm reading, which another story real quick, I'm building the master copy of the factory service manual for my car. So I've got like the Miata chassis parts, but the Acura engine parts, and trying to meld all that together in a cool document, but I digress. So reading through the factory service manual on the Acura side, and just pull the front off there, and I and you see and you're looking at this thing, you're like, okay, well, I'm not too worried. I'm going to pull this off. Like, what do I have to worry about? Well, I didn't bother draining the oil because all the oil is supposed to be in the oil pan, but on the K Miata, the thing is clocked like 15 degrees, and so a good couple of quarts came out, and they're all on my garage floor, and that's never the best, fancy, I had plenty of cat litter, as you can imagine, having three cats, but it's just not the same anymore. It's not like the oil dry, or old school cat
Yeah.
litter. It's all some special, prissy kitty kind of bullshit. Excuse my French, and it just doesn't do the job, right? It's probably lightweight and
Yeah.
environmentally friendly or something, but it's not the same. So, um, anyway, we got that cleaned up kind of. Got everything, like I said, got all the moving bits back in there. So yeah, I've got next thing is like a whole lot of Honda Bond and putting it back together, which shouldn't take long. And then I'm also going to replace everything that touches the belt drive, right? So
Oh, sure.
water pump, tensioner, pulley, I think is all there is, and just all the 100,000 mile stuff basically. And
Yeah.
that should give me some peace of mind. So kind of go into your, like you find an issue, let's just make it rock solid, right? With that hose you got there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yep. I think that the if we know that the most fun part about road racing is the math, the
Mhm.
second most fun part about road racing is developing your own technical service manual.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to iOS, like great, like integrated PDF editing solutions. The kind of stuff you'd have
Yeah.
to be paying for Acrobat Pro or something. So and that's a very nerdy, software vendor management problem to highlight. But I mean, yeah, I've got an iPad, and I was able to add and remove pages and insert stuff and here and there, add comments, and without paying for any more software, which is was pretty helpful. But yeah, there's a lot of deleting, emission systems, and how to use all these. That is the thing that's painful, is one at a time deleting these pages, because there's not like a
Yeah.
shift. There's no shift click on in iOS, or kind of click drag select for these pages. So it's basically just sitting there watching 90 Day Fiance, and deleting safety mechanism pages one at a time. But
That sounds like probably the best way to watch 90 Day Fiance.
this is a worse show, man. It's
I mean, if if
it's
uh if you have to watch 90 Day Fiance.
it's formatted for like cable, but it's streamed, and it's so
Oh,
repetitive. And
yeah.
it's like there was this one lady that had to admit that she had Tourette's or something, and it went on for like 15 or 20 minutes, and it was just like, I've got a secret I have to tell you. Boom, smash cut. I don't know when I'm going to tell you this secret, but I'm going to tell you this episode. I'm sure I will. Boom. And then like her smashed to her boyfriend. She's got a secret she's going to tell you, and then just over and over and over again. And guess what? She's got Tourette's. Poor thing. Anyway.
Did they tell you in that episode, or did they like manage to hang it over to the next episode?
No, they told you, and you knew what it was. You said twitching, but anyway. uh, so yeah, that's my life. I think that's about it. I think my goal for the rest of the season, I was telling Pat earlier, I've got a lot of travel coming up. I don't really see myself getting back out there. I missed a pretty cool event, Miata's at Hallett. Saw a bunch of people having fun out there, um, but yeah, I think my goal for the season is to get the car put back together, and go take it to a dyno shop and dial in some numbers for next year's NASA season, and try to really hit up some NASA races, Hallett, ECR, maybe Crescent, those types of things. So,
You going to try to do a lot of common stuff next year?
well, I'd love to focus on NASA,
Oh yeah.
get back into NASA, because I think Roland and I are both right there at that sweet spot where we can do that, and I'd like for him to get his license,
Yeah.
and yeah, we can go run ST5, ST4. Um, Back to math is the best thing about road racing. I was doing a bunch of math. So I think Roland and I brought this up, or I may have brought this up after Roland and I battled each other that time at Hallett this year.
Yeah.
we were not too happy with the Toyos and the Maxxis tires, and just felt pretty off pace, right? Even
Yeah.
compared to what we can do on the uh, like 200 treadwear enduro tires. And so then talking to Ross, and he said, "Look, I don't care what your power to weight ratio is, you got to run the Hoosiers. It's 2 seconds faster," and that does seem to be the case. So I was worried about that in Super Touring 5 because I would have had to go down to like 160 horsepower or something to kind of slot in.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm just in a jacked up Miata motor kind of like territory. Like, why do we even have this 2.5 liter,
Mm-hmm.
in here? And so I thought to myself, well, what about ST4, right? How do I slot in with Hoosiers and ST4? And it's perfect, right? It's 200 horsepower, 2,300 pounds on Hoosiers, 4-inch splitter. So I continue to wish-wash between various classes, but at least right now I'm just right in between ST4 and 5, just trying to figure out which compound to be on. But anyway, I'm going to wear out these Toyos first and then worry about that because that's a big problem. I think to get full advantage of the Hoosiers, I got to buy 10-inch wide wheels. This is a $4,000 problem. I don't want to do it right this second, So hopefully we'll get to
Yeah.
it, middle or end of next year if things are good to me. But yeah, so good to know. Good to know I got a place to run with a kind of a natural build on the car. I hate adding too much ballast or anything like
Yeah.
that, or trying to like just pull too much power out of that motor. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how NASA goes next year. But that's about it for me. We've got a few more topics to cover. I think we got about 20, 25 more minutes to go over things. But
All right.
well, it's been a couple weeks. It's been definitely a season for F1, and we haven't talked about that too much.
Woo.
But man, it has been a season. What is going on? The big thing today seems like Newey's big contract with Aston Martin. That makes me sad. I think it's a total waste of a perfect talent. I don't want Newey to end up being like some paid, super engineer that's going to get a paid driver, a championship. That would make me sad. I feel like that'd be bad for the sport. But yeah, it's
I don't think Lance could win a championship even with the best car.
really.
Fernando might be able to do it.
Hmm.
I mean, between the two of them, unless it comes down to, Daddy gives team orders every race and says, let's go ahead and make sure Lancey gets in first. It'd be
Yeah,
the biggest. It'd be the biggest asterisk in Formula One championship history, right? Like,
is that what they do? They would just say like asterisk bought and paid, but even worse
yeah.
than all the other drivers in the past.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, oh yeah, totally worse. I mean, even like Nico, at least he won that, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
it wasn't,
Oh no,
like,
Nico worked his ass off.
yeah, and I don't think you could take that away from anybody. You'd have to go way back.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't surprised by that move, just with the limited history that Newey has in the recent past with the Valkyrie and doing a supercar
Mm,
for Aston. Like,
sure.
there was enough of a relationship there. I think it's been known for a long time that Newey didn't want to move to Italy. Like, he says that
Okay.
in his autobiography.
Mm,
I think what was it when he left McLaren, maybe,
mm,
that Ferrari came after him. I think that was when Ross Brawn was still at Ferrari,
mm,
and came after him, and he was like, basically, I just didn't want to. My recollection may be imperfect, but
mm,
I remember like him not wanting to move to Italy being a big part of that, and like it just wasn't going to work, especially back then. With him being like working remote from England and the factories in Italy, and then you think about everything with Ferrari, like even the guys that are in Italy can't work in Italy. So imagine some Brit from trying to work from England on a Ferrari, designing Ferraris. I mean, it should work, but I don't think it would have given the way that team
no, I don't think
politics,
so.
the way those team politics work. So I didn't think it was. I wasn't surprised. I don't like it because I don't like the whole Stroll thing at Aston Martin.
Mm,
I think we all like to engage in a little bit of wishful thinking that it's not all about the money in Formula One when we all know it really is all about the money.
mm,
Um, but you know, like I said, I wasn't surprised just because of the Valkyrie, and I think that's an itch that Nui wants to scratch a little bit more. I mean, we saw that with what is the RB17 or whatever
Yeah.
that thing is. That none of us will ever see one in person on the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, he's done that a few times. Yeah.
Or even in person, right? Just in person in a shop somewhere. So yeah, I'm glad to see that he'll be in the game still.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's better for Formula One.
What about hot takes on? I think the Norris thing is becoming a sticky situation for McLaren, right? Like, they had some team orders there in a way to let Piastri through one time, but they're going to have to be all on Norris, Hundo P, if he's going to win the championship.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know if there's going to be some enhanced focus on that. It's not like they only want the constructors championship, right? So
Right.
anyway, I
Which
find that to be interesting.
they're in that game thanks to Sergio Perez's continued, malfeasance,
Yeah,
malpractice as a Formula One driver. I mean,
yeah.
Red Bull really should have had that set up in the first half of the season, really, except that, Checo can't drive when Checo doesn't want to drive. So,
Oh yeah, no, I mean Verstappen totally carried that whole thing, and yeah, it's sad. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with that car or that second car, but it just doesn't seem to be.
if you
It,
did,
it, it-
I think they'd have several million pounds they could throw your way
sure,
to come tell them.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, or is the car? I don't know. I don't know what to think. Yeah, I mean that totally befuddles me because I don't think Checo's a terrible, terrible driver. He's in Formula
Well,
One for crying out loud.
yeah, no, that's true. But although that's not really always the marker, right? I mean, Lance Stroll's in Formula One too. Um, Nikita Mazepin was in Formula One for a cup of coffee. Um,
Yeah.
but I think from what I've read and seen, like there's what is it they say? There's basically a fundamental disconnect between the front half of the car and the rear half of the car, and
Gotcha.
it's so unbalanced that you can't rely on, like you don't know what it's going to do, and we've seen that how many times over the years in Formula One. Like if the driver's not confident in what the car is going to do,
Mhm.
it's not even like it's a difficult car to drive. Like you can drive a difficult car if it's consistent. It's that when it's inconsistent and you're not confident, then you can't you can't mash the pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Verstappen's driving it at some ragged edge to where something connects, or he's just that wild. But yeah,
Yeah, or he's good
interesting
enough.
stuff.
He's good enough to at least get closer to the
Yeah.
top. But yeah, I mean, like that last race when they're like, swapping out floors and practice sessions to try and like that tells you. I saw that tells you how confounded they are. And I saw something with Horner. I know we have a lot of Christian Horner fans that listen.
Mhm.
So this will be a little hot goss on the Christian Horner front,
Mhm.
but where he was saying like, it's enough of a problem now that we don't trust our tools, right?
Mhm.
Like they're
Mhm.
not seeing what they're seeing happen on track is not correlated in their sim testing.
Right.
And so I think that's a situation that they haven't run into in the past, in the past on that car.
Mhm.
And that's a terrible situation to be in when
Yeah.
you think, okay, we do this will fix it, and then you get out there and it's not. I mean, I think that's the same problem that Mercedes has had for the last 2 or 3 years is they're missing a correlation there somewhere.
That's got to create huge knock-on effects to your development in the future as well, right? Because everything's done in CFD, and it's like if you're not correlating to reality, then you know you're kind of hosed. Like I'm sure some things work, right? But
Yeah.
clearly there's something missing. So
Well, the aerodynamics play such a huge role. I mean, that's not a news flash to anybody, right? But that's so difficult, and they don't test at full scale. They're not allowed to test at full scale in the
Mhm.
wind tunnel. Those are like 70% models that go into the wind
Mhm.
tunnel. Um, and so I think they're at the point where the small differences make a real difference at the end of it. And so if you're not perfect on at the wind tunnel stage, or maybe even if you are, then it scales up, another 30%, and the effect just, some effect overscales or underscales, and you're just not able to necessarily always account for it 100%. And then, plus with the kind of the cost caps and the testing rules, like the real world testing, they've cut that back so much as part of the cost containment stuff that you think about, like, it wasn't that long ago that those guys would go to, like Portimao for like 3 weeks of testing or something like that. Like they were there for a long time. And now it's like, 2 days in Abu Dhabi the weekend before the race or something like that. I mean, it's preposterous how much they've limited real world testing.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of smart engineers, mathematicians to build out the right models to try to simulate these things. Yeah, because you just don't get to the track.
Yeah, and then if you've got a false assumption or false premise somewhere early in the process, I mean, that's kind of like what Toto was talking about with the Mercedes last year. We thought we had. He said something like, we thought we had basically figured out what our bad assumption was from the year before, and then we went down that road. But it turns out we identified the wrong assumption.
Yeah.
Well, what a disaster, I mean, that's something that happened, probably 12 months before the car hit the ground for the first time. And like you stick all of that money and work into the new car, and then the new car doesn't work because of a decision that was made a long ago that you couldn't even test out because you've cost capped it. I don't know. I'm not the one who's going to say, oh, they need to be able to spend unlimited funds on Formula One, because I do like the constraints of the cost cap. I mean, I think the plus side that we're seeing this season is, and that all of our fantasy results prove, is that this is the most unpredictable season any of us have seen in Formula One in our lifetimes, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like who's gonna win this weekend? Well, let's look at the FP3 results. Well, those aren't even really correlated. Like,
yeah,
it used to be you saw your FP3 results and you were going to be pretty close to knowing who was going to be in contention, right? Who was going to be not. Now it could be any of the maybe Checo. But
yeah, we had a very compressed top 10, but like like Red Bull was out front a little bit there for a while, but now it's like it's all in the same space, It's like it's not like that's 1 through 10. That's like 1 through 1. And there just have to be 10 drivers in there, like dive bombing each other into one, and it's pretty exciting. I feel like the races drone on a little bit once the order gets a little sorted out, but I mean, even it was really cool last race for Ferrari to get a win on strategy. I mean, so I don't know, pretty cool, unpredictable stuff. I'd love to see Lando and McLaren focus their efforts and really take it to Verstappen. I mean, that's our only hope for some sort of battle there, I feel like. And I'm not a huge McLaren or Lando fan, but I am a lot more of a fan of them than I am Verstappen. So
you're more like an anti-Verstappen fan.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It works for me.
And I wonder, this goes back to something we talked about earlier this year in a prior podcast about the Formula One driver contracts and some of their terms and stipulations, right? And like, you're going to be the clear number one driver, or and so I wonder what's in Piastri's contract. I mean, I wonder what's in Lando's too, but I really wonder more about what's in Piastri's, because like him getting out of that Alpine deal, or not being constrained to the Alpine deal, or however that came around when that whole fracas blew up a year and a half ago. What does his contract say? Does it say, I bet it doesn't say you're a second driver. I bet what it says is something along the lines of, we will, seek to give you parts as good as the number one car. And, we'll give you an opportunity, even if the contract doesn't say it, we'll give you the opportunity to win races.
Yeah.
I think that's a tricky political situation for Zach Brown to handle between those two guys.
I heard a good point there as to why he is fighting so hard, and it makes sense. But just to kind of bring it home is, if he goes into the next season and his teammate is a world champion,
Oh
then
yeah,
then his teammate is the defending world champion, and then that's it. Whether or not in the contract it says number one or number two
yep,
driver.
yep.
I mean, that's a pretty clear delineation, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, as much as you hate to see him kind of like sabotage that championship for his team, he's clearly still, trying to get them some advantage for the manufacturers championship or title. So, yeah, or constructors, sorry. So yeah, I don't know. It is spicy. I like
It
to
is
see it.
spicy. It is
I like to
spicy.
see it.
I mean, I like seeing I like seeing Ferrari. I'm not,
Mhm,
I'm not the Ferrari fanboy. Dave handles that for us,
mhm,
but I like seeing them get back into it. I mean, I've said before, Carlo is my favorite driver on the grid.
mhm.
I'd like to see him, pick up another win. I think he got done really dirty um, by Ferrari and that whole deal um, to get Lewis over there.
Yeah,
Um, I just like I said, I think he got done dirty.
yeah,
Which is too bad because I think he's a very good driver and really a really good guy, right? I mean, which race was it last year where he kept making sure that Lando,
oh
or was
right.
it? It wasn't Vegas, but it was about this point in the season last year, wasn't it? Um,
Yeah, and he just did kind of like some race strategy blocking for
yeah, from
McLaren or
ahead,
something.
like to
Yeah, yeah.
slow down enough to make sure that Lando could have DRS, so he could stay in front of Max or whoever it was, or
Oh yeah.
Lewis, right? So that Lando couldn't get caught because he knew that when he was in clear air, that Lando couldn't catch him even with
Mm,
DRS.
mm.
And Carlo was the one who came up with that, on the fly in the car. It wasn't like his, strategist came up with that.
Yeah,
That's
pretty smart.
yeah,
It's
that's
pretty smart
awesome.
racecraft. Yeah,
Exactly.
I like it.
Um, so
Yeah. Well, very good. Yeah, it's been a season, and yeah, boy howdy, fantasy GP is all a mess for me at least. All I care about is myself, but I'm sure there's somebody that's doing a great job. I mean,
in best Formula One driver fashion, all you care about is yourself.
yeah, but I mean, I know like Tipton, even like the HR guy on
Mm-hmm.
the team, like he kicked my ass last race, I think. So I think a lot of people are going heavy on McLaren. I may have changed some things up. I think I may have finally ditched old Verstappen,
Yeah.
uh, but we'll see. I've reinvested my wealth, and hopefully I can pick it up here at the end of the season. Um,
Yeah. So we've got Azerbaijan this weekend, right?
yeah,
And then Singapore the next weekend. And then we've got almost a month. We've got basically a month break between Singapore and Austin.
really, man, so many
Yeah.
breaks. It's a while that they've got so many races on the calendar. I think they're compressing time. I don't. I think they got some of those smart engineers, and I don't know how they get so many races on the calendar. But anyway, I guess it's pretty much just year round, right? I mean, what do you end
Yeah.
in November and probably pick it up in February?
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's the benefit of globalization for Formula One, right? Like it's
yeah.
not, we're going to run 14 races within the confines of Europe and maybe go down to, Brazil and you know,
Oh no, the final round is in December
yeah,
in Abu Dhabi. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
it's
wow,
crazy.
wow, okay. Christmas racing.
Yes,
Cool. Well, I think we've made a podcast. I know you've got a race coming up, Houston. So that'll be early November. I know we're marching towards that. We basically, covered this, but any other thoughts before we part our ways here for the evening?
I don't think so. Houston will be. I mean, we've done that race a gajillion
Houston
times.
experts.
Yeah, yeah, close to at least.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think we've got 4 or 5 drivers lined up for that
Nice.
one. So we should be good to go for that. And same garage we always have. And yeah, one nice part about Houston, not only is it relatively close, but we've done it so many times. Like we don't have to. There's no reinventing the wheel for
Hmm.
this race. It'd just be nice to get the car out there and just do 2 days of race.
Yeah. it seems like you're in the catbird seat. I mean, it ran like a top and at Hallett, like had a little bit of issue there.
Yeah, until
Hallett
until
too.
those two injectors stopped working.
Yeah, but I mean, but even the season before that, I mean, it ran like a
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
So I think you're onto something here. I'm really sad I'm going to miss that big W, but I don't want to jinx you. Um, well,
I
awesome,
don't
man.
even care. I don't even care if it's a W. I mean, it'd be
Yeah,
nice, but I really don't
yeah,
care. I want to race for 2 days and just have a good time and
yeah.
get home late on Sunday instead
There
of
you
early on Sunday or
go.
Saturday
Right.
or
Yeah.
Friday.
You're home. You're home early, honey. Yeah.
I didn't expect you home until 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Right.
we
Come
should
on.
still be on track.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I got a little bit of Lemons news. The 929 car that I won IOE in.
Oh
Not, yeah, it
yeah,
wasn't my car, but it got a little bit of a shout out on YouTube. So I guess they did a feature. Lemons did a feature on the 929. So yeah,
nice.
it's pretty funny. But uh, but yeah, it is just a terrible, rare dentist car that, was very low numbers and yeah, you just can't buy parts for them. So
Another car that should have never seen the racetrack.
yeah, yeah, and I think that I really did appreciate as kind of their closing thoughts on the Lemons video was just showing the car driving around the track and be like, ladies and gentlemen, probably the only Mazda
Ah,
929 racing on the planet. So there you go. Yeah,
that is some sort of ignominy.
yeah.
Do you know is Chris taking it back out for this fall?
I don't know what's happening. There hasn't been. I mean, we just kind of chat a little bit about things, but I don't know. I mean, we were able to win another entry there, so I would
Oh,
love
that's
to
right.
maybe partake in a seat, being a part of that effort. But I'll leave that up to Chris, right? I mean, he earned it, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. But I think the main thing right now is considering a motor swap, right? Like
Mm,
that motor is very tired, and there are no parts for it, right? So I
yeah.
think you're freshen up the motor. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You're gonna get a couple spares. It was a bespoke motor for that bespoke car that nobody bought. So
Was it really?
yeah, it was
Oh
like a
wow.
Mazda B1 or something.
I figured it'd be some Ford engine that
Yeah, I
they
thought it. Yeah, exactly. I thought it
slapped a
would just be
different
out of
intake on.
Explorer or something, which wouldn't be a terrible idea. It's probably just put a some sort of SUV V6 in it. But
The other issue with that car was like rear suspension parts, like NLA
yeah,
rear
so it's got
suspension parts, right?
yeah, and so we had talked about putting just more of a antique style rear axle on it. Um, but yeah, the big issue there is rear wheel steering and all the complex linkage for that. Yeah, it's got like a little, um, it's got like a little small steering rack in the back
Oh
that's
my
like
god.
electronically actuated or something. It's just a damn mess, man. So no,
Yeah,
that
it sounds like what he needs to do is buy like a 94 Exploder and
yeah,
just
replace the entire
yeah,
drivetrain.
take the stick axle off of the back of that thing
Mhm.
and work that in and use the engine off of it
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
it's always so easy to come up with really smart dumb ideas for somebody else's car, right? Like this is all you need to do. It's
yeah.
so
No, I
clear.
mean, I tried to talk him out of this stuff a lot, right? Like he was like, "Ah, just put a Mustang rear end on it," and I'm just like, "What you need to do is get rid of this thing, right?" Like,
Or alternatively, get a Mustang that already has a
yeah,
Mustang
just
rear
get
end
a
on it.
Mustang. Yeah, just get a V6 Mustang and go racing. Like this is the solution. Yeah,
Yeah, a car that they made about 4 million of every year for 12 years,
yeah,
and you can go to every auto parts store within a thrown rock distance from the racetrack and find all the replacement parts that you need.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it's like we don't need to make this any harder, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yep. I'll get off my soapbox there. I almost got political, but no, don't make your life any harder than it needs to be.
No, except that is lemons. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a very fundamental part of lemons is, well, we could go race. I mean, look at me. We could go race an E36. which is still a lot harder than like we could go race an F body or a Fox or
Mhm.
any Mustang, right?
Mhm.
I mean, shoot, an Explorer might be really a better option
Might be.
in terms of parts availability, right? Like that's what it really comes down to,
Yeah.
parts availability.
It murders some curbs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, those, what is it? The Jeep Cherokees.
yep.
Those were cool little race cars.
I
Anyway.
really wanted for a long time. I really wanted to do a trophy truck uh, version of I mean a Lemons trophy truck, right? So
Oh, that'd be cool.
take an F-150 and put the engine behind the driver,
Yeah.
and so that you don't have the front engine, no weight over the back axle
Mm.
issue, and race that sucker like that.
I'm in for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not the build costs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just find that transaxle that
Yeah.
can
Just that
that you
$500 my
can,
ass transaxle.
that's right, that you can bolt the engine right to on the rear end, and
Mhm.
you're all set.
Mhm.
That,
Yep. I'll get right on that.
so what you do is
Uh,
you buy a Corvette
mhm.
and a Sierra,
Mhm.
and you swap the Corvette out. You make a really short torque tube.
Okay. I think you're onto something. I like the idea. I've been wanting to like. I think about an F-150 a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
not even doing all that work, but just fitting some giant tires under it, right? No bed, big wing mounts coming off of the frame. Maybe some sort of arrow to try to clean that arrow up. Like,
For
you know.
Lemons, you'd have to run the bed, right?
Oh,
Because
really?
it'd be considered crush structure.
Oh, really?
I bet. Yeah.
Well, dreams crushed.
No, no. I mean, you might be right. Since it's a body on frame, maybe not. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You have to put some fenders on them wheels.
Yeah, that's true. But that's
Yeah.
not too hard.
Yeah, but I like your idea of the midship engine. That sounds real cool. Yeah,
Yeah, and the truth is, you could even do it with like if you did it with a V6, it'd be real easy.
yeah. Or just like a turbo K swap.
Yeah, that's
What
true.
if you
I'm
did
just
a front wheel drive on the rear axle? Like a front wheel
that would
drive
be awesome. No,
drivetrain on the rear
that would be
axle,
awesome.
and
That
a
would
front wheel
be
drive drivetrain on the front of the motor.
yeah. Dual motor cars are a blast to drive. I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
Just make sure you've got an automatic on one of them,
That's right.
preferably the one that you really can hear. And that would be something. You could do a transverse swap. Now that's the real heresy there. That is the idea, Murphy, is to put like an Asian drivetrain on an F-150.
Hmm. I like this. It's
Like
gonna go far.
a turbo 3 out of a GR Corolla,
Right, just
right?
a murdered boosted turbo 3.
Yeah. Yeah, go find one at Copart.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anything except the drivetrain, transmission, whatever electronics you need to run the thing.
Hmm.
And probably the front suspension so that you can, or at least the front hubs or something, or you're gonna have to do some sort of
You
weird
can stay on brand
conversion.
and do like the Fiesta ST turbo.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah.
But that GR turbo, like they're getting sick horsepower out of that thing, aren't they? It's like a turbo 3 and they're getting 300 some horse out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's all nice and direct injected and very well built. Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah. Put your 24 gallon fuel cell between the front axles,
I like this. Yeah,
right? So that it's
right.
inside the wheelbase, and go make things
Problem
happen.
solved.
That's it.
Yeah, new last idea. Busa per corner, Busa swap per corner. Okay, so you have independent Hayabusa motors. Never mind. Now we're just getting stupid.
Yeah, you're back to Thunder Roadster talk again with the
Yeah,
Busa motor.
yeah. Well, good stuff. Well, I appreciate all the coverage. Lemons, 24-hour Lemons. Check them out on YouTube and at your local racetrack. We were just
And
talking.
Formula One. I mean,
Yeah,
they mesh so nicely. Formula
yeah,
One and Lemons. We've just like
yeah.
bookended the
Well,
entire automotive
it's the things you
range.
can afford to do and the things you like to watch on TV. So
That's right.
there we go. All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap this up. Mallory, do you have any shout outs for the evening?
I'd like to thank Rachel again for helping out on the car and in life generally.
Yeah.
And yeah, look forward to seeing the guys again. Maybe what I need to do is maybe throw an AHOD just to get everybody
Yeah.
down here for a weekend.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
Although
fun. That's
I'd have to work around your busy travel schedule, so maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, don't worry about me. I'm not really racing it, but I'd love to come down if it works out for my schedule. But we'll see. Yeah. Well, cool. We'll check out racershq.com, buy some merch or don't. Doesn't hurt my feeling. I don't know. Check us out on Discord. Got a bit of a community there.
It might be time to start getting your nominations for Racers HQ 2024 Driver of the Year.
Driver of the Year, yeah. It's going to be pretty slim pickings. We've
Start
not
thinking about it.
done a ton of racing, but think about that. If you'd like to nominate somebody or give them 4,000 votes, just let me know. We'll just make it up and somebody will get a t-shirt. And
Don't pay a bot to ruin the voting. Just pay us.
Yeah. You don't need to go generate 4,000 different email addresses.
No.
You just tell me and I'll take care of it for you.
Right. Well, just slide me. I mean, it's the Racers HQ. Like, there's no illusion that this thing is like fair, right? Like, this prize could be bought.
Oh, totally bought. Yeah. No, I would love a little budget for some podcasting software, maybe a new mic. Yeah, bring it. I can be purchased easily.
It's not that you can't be purchased, it's that you're open to being purchased. I mean, everybody can be purchased, right? It's like the old joke about now we're just negotiating about the price. I
like this. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you the setup. You can Google that, and because we're trying to keep it a family pod.
I love a good. The punchline was joke. Very good. All right. Well, we will see you at the track. It may not happen next week, but check us out. Like and subscribe, rate and review, and we will see you at the track. Bye, everybody.
Good night, America, and international friends.
And Dave. Good night, Dave.
And Dave.